Jake Harrison stood at the main window of the space station and watched the alien ship get closer. The station was called Liberty, and it floated high above Earth in the darkness of space. Jake was the commander here, which meant he was responsible for everything that happened on the station and everyone who lived on it. 3 months had passed since the aliens first made contact with Earth. They called themselves the Veltrons, and they came from a group of planets far across the galaxy. The Veltrons had blue skin and spoke through devices that translated their words into English. They seemed friendly enough. They told humanity about something called the Galactic Consortium, which was like a big club of alien species. 200 different types of aliens belonged to this club, and now they wanted Earth to join too. At first, everyone on Earth was excited. Finally, humanity was not alone in the universe. The Veltrons brought gifts and knowledge. They shared pictures of their worlds and told stories about other alien races. They promised to teach humans about better technology and how to travel faster through space. It all seemed wonderful, but Amy Rodriguez had found something wrong. Amy was a lieutenant on the station, and her job was to look through all the data and files the aliens sent to Earth. She was good at finding patterns and details that other people missed. 2 days ago, she discovered files hidden inside what looked like normal cultural information. These files were in a strange code, but Amy and her team worked hard to translate them. What they found made Amy's hands shake as she read the words on her screen. She immediately went to find Jake. Jake was in his office when Amy knocked on the door. He looked up from his work and saw her pale face. She looked scared, which was unusual because Amy was normally calm and confident. "Commander, you need to see this right now," Amy said. Her voice was quiet but urgent. Jake followed her to the computer lab where she worked. On the main screen was a document written in English, translated from the alien language. The title at the top said Galactic Threat Classification System. "What is this?" Jake asked. "It's how they rate every species in the galaxy," Amy explained. She pulled up another file. They rank each species from 1 to 10 based on how dangerous they could become. Most species are rated between 2 and 4. The Veltrons themselves are rated as a 6. Jake scanned through the list of alien names and numbers. He saw species rated as 3, 4, and 5. Then Amy scrolled down to the bottom of the list and Jake felt his stomach drop. Earth was rated 9.7. "That can't be right," Jake said. "There must be some mistake. We barely have working fusion engines. Half our planet is still recovering from wars and climate problems. How could we possibly be more dangerous than species that have had space travel for thousands of years?" Amy shook her head. "That's what I thought too. But look at this explanation." She opened another file and highlighted a section. It says that Class 9 species are called extinction-level adaptive threats. "They're not rating our technology, Commander. They're rating something else." Jake read the words on the screen carefully. The document explained that the threat level was based on several factors including aggression, creativity, survival instinct, and something called adaptive capability. According to the file, humans scored higher in these areas than almost any other known species. "They're afraid of what we might become, not what we are right now," Amy said softly. Jake called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. Within an hour, everyone important on the station was gathered in the conference room. There was Kevin Chen, the chief scientist who studied alien technology, Captain Lisa Brennan, who commanded the station's small defense force, and several other officers who needed to know what was happening. Jake put the files up on the big screen so everyone could see them. He watched their faces change from confusion to shock as they read the threat rating. "This doesn't make any sense," Lisa said. She stood up and pointed at the screen. "We're not a threat to anyone. We've been peaceful in all our dealings with the Veltrons. Why would they rate us so high?" Kevin had been reading through more of the files on his tablet. His face was serious as he looked up at the others. "I think I found something else." Something worse. Everyone turned to look at him. Kevin sent a new file to the main screen. This one was titled Mandatory Response Protocols for High-Threat Species. "Every species rated above 7.5 has a special protocol," Kevin explained. He read directly from the document. Within 100 standard cycles of classification, a Class 9 species must be neutralized before they achieve full interstellar capability. The room went silent. Jake felt cold despite the warm temperature in the conference room. "Neutralized," Lisa repeated the word slowly. "They mean killed. They mean all of us. How long is a standard cycle? Amy asked, though her voice suggested she already feared the answer. Kevin did some quick calculations on his tablet. Based on their time measurements in other documents, one cycle is roughly equal to one Earth month. Maybe a little longer. Jake did the math in his head. 100 cycles meant about 100 months. But Earth had already been classified for some time. When did they classify us? Amy pulled up more files. According to these dates, we were officially rated and entered into their system approximately 3 months ago. Right after first contact. Lisa walked over to a calendar on the wall. So we have maybe 8 months left. 8 months before what exactly? Jake looked at the protocol document again. It did not give many details, but what it did say was clear enough. High-threat species were not allowed to spread across the galaxy. They had to be stopped before they became too powerful to control. 8 months before they come to eliminate us, Jake said quietly. All of us. The entire human race, Kevin was still reading through files. They've been stalling. All those promises about sharing technology and teaching us about faster space travel. They've been running tests on us, watching how we behave, confirming their assessment. The whole friendship was fake. They were just buying time. Time for what? Lisa demanded. Time to prepare, Jake answered. He looked around at his team. Time to figure out the best way to destroy us without risking themselves. Time to bring in whatever forces they need to make sure humans never leave our solar system. Amy brought up Earth's recent achievements on the screen. We activated our first quantum fold drive 2 months ago. That's what they consider full interstellar capability. We can now travel between stars, at least in theory. That's probably what triggered their timeline. Jake felt angry and scared at the same time. Humanity had finally reached the stars. They had made friends with aliens. They thought they were joining a community of peaceful species. Instead, they had just signed their own death warrant. We need to warn Earth, Lisa said. We need to tell them right now. Jake nodded and moved toward the communications console. But before he could send a message, every screen in the room went black. The lights flickered. Then everything came back on, but something was different. A new face appeared on the main screen. It was not a Veltran. This alien had gray skin and several eyes arranged around its head. It spoke through a translator device, and its voice was urgent. Do not send that message, the alien said. They are watching everything. If you warn Earth through normal channels, you will only speed up your extinction. Jake stared at the screen. Who are you? My name is Zek, the alien replied. I am here to help you survive. But first, you need to understand the real truth about the galaxy, and I promise you, it is much worse than you think. Jake stared at the gray-skinned alien on the screen. The creature's multiple eyes blinked in a pattern that seemed almost nervous. Behind Jake, his team had gone completely silent, waiting to hear what this stranger had to say. How did you get through our communications? Lisa asked. Her hand moved closer to the security alert button on the table. I have been monitoring your station since you discovered the classification files, Zek replied. My people have technology that allows us to intercept and redirect signals. The Veltrans do not know I am speaking with you right now, but that will not last long. We must be quick. Jake held up his hand to stop Lisa from pressing the alert. Something in the alien's voice made him want to listen. You said you're here to help us survive. Why would you help humans? You don't even know us. Because I know what it feels like to face extinction, Zek answered. My species was rated Class 8.6. We were scheduled for elimination just like you, but we escaped. We have been hiding and running for 300 of your years. Amy leaned forward, her eyes focused on the screen. How many others escaped? 11 species in total have managed to avoid their death sentences, Zek said. We call ourselves the Survival Coalition. We are scattered across the galaxy, always moving, always hiding. When we detected your rating, we knew we had to make contact. You are rated higher than any species in recorded history. If you survive, you could change everything. Kevin was taking notes on his tablet. Why are we rated so high? What makes humans more dangerous than other species? Zek's eyes focused on Kevin. You survived yourselves. That is extremely rare. Most intelligent species follow one of two paths. Either they destroy themselves with weapons and wars before reaching space, or they achieve peace by making everyone think the same way. They use genetic changes or mind control to remove differences and conflict. Humans did neither, Jake said slowly, beginning to understand. Exactly, Zek confirmed. You fought terrible wars. You nearly destroyed your own planet. You created weapons that could have ended all life on Earth. But instead of dying out or forcing everyone to be the same, you chose a third path. You kept your differences. You kept your chaos and creativity, and somehow you survived anyway. Lisa crossed her arms. So they want to kill us because we're different from each other? They want to kill you because you cannot be predicted or controlled, Zek explained. The Galactic Consortium is not really a peaceful federation. It is a prison system. Every member species has been tamed. They think in safe, predictable ways. They follow rules. They do not take risks. But humans take risks all the time. You try impossible things. You adapt to any situation. That kind of unpredictability terrifies them. Jake felt a chill run down his back. You said this is worse than we think. Tell us everything. Zek paused, and for a moment his translator was silent. Then he began to speak again, and his words painted a dark picture of the galaxy humanity had just joined. 6,000 years ago, an ancient race called the progenitors had spread life across the galaxy. They created the first intelligent species and gave them technology to travel the stars. Then the progenitors disappeared, leaving behind only one rule written into the computers of every ship and station they built. The rule said, maintain balance. Species that grew too powerful, too aggressive, or too unpredictable had to be stopped. The Velthrons and other old species took this rule and built the consortium around it. They created the classification system to identify dangerous species early. They developed protocols to eliminate threats before they could spread. Over thousands of years, they perfected the process of finding and destroying species that did not fit their vision of a safe, orderly galaxy. How many species have they destroyed? Amy asked quietly. 47 Class 9 species in the last 1,000 years alone, Zek answered. Probably hundreds more before that. Most of them never knew what was coming. The consortium makes friendly contact, studies the new species, rates them, and then acts. By the time a species realizes the danger, it is usually too late. Kevin looked sick. How do they do it? Do they send warships? Sometimes, Zek said. But for Class 9 species, they use something worse. They use machines called cleaners. These are weapons created by the progenitors themselves. They are self-replicating, intelligent, and completely without mercy. Once activated, they do not stop until every trace of the target species is gone. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth hung in the darkness like a blue jewel. Billions of people down there had no idea that their entire species was scheduled for elimination. When will these cleaners arrive? They were activated 30 cycles ago, Zek replied. They are traveling toward your solar system right now. At their current speed, they will arrive in approximately 2 of your months. 2 months. Jake turned back to face the screen. Can they be stopped? 47 species tried to stop them, Zek said. 47 species failed. The cleaners are designed to fight any conventional military force. They learn from every attack. They adapt to every strategy. They cannot be reasoned with or negotiated with. They only know one task: eliminate the threat. Lisa slammed her hand on the table. Then what are we supposed to do? Just sit here and wait to die? No, Zek said firmly. You are supposed to do what humans do best. You are supposed to be unpredictable. You are supposed to fight in ways the cleaners have never seen before. That is your only chance. Ben Walsh appeared on a second screen. He was a captain in Earth's defense network, calling in from a military base on the planet's surface. His face was hard and serious. I've been listening to this conversation. Zek, you said 11 species escaped. How did they do it? Different ways, Zek answered. My people saw the cleaners coming and evacuated our homeworld before they arrived. We spread across the galaxy in small groups, never staying in one place long enough to be found. Other species fought and managed to damage the cleaner swarm enough to escape, while the machines were repairing themselves. One species actually surrendered and agreed to genetic modification. The consortium changed them until they were no longer rated as dangerous. That's not survival, Ben said. That's becoming slaves? I agree, Zek replied. That is why I am here talking to you instead of living peacefully under consortium control. Real survival means staying who you are. Jake made a decision. We need to contact Earth Command immediately. Every nation, every military, every scientist needs to know about this. We have 2 months to prepare for a war. The Velthrons will know the moment you send that message, Zek warned. They will try to stop you from preparing. They may even try to sabotage your defenses. Let them try, Jake said. Amy, send the message on all channels. Encrypted and open. I want everyone on Earth to know the truth within the hour. Amy's fingers moved quickly across her console. Within minutes, the warning was spreading across Earth's communication networks. Jake knew that in every capital city, every military headquarters, and every space agency, people were reading the impossible truth about humanity's situation. Kevin was already pulling up files and making calculations. If we have 2 months, we need to focus on 3 things. First, we need weapons. Second, we need ships. Third, we need a strategy that the cleaners won't expect. The Survival Coalition can help with some of that, Zek offered. We have incomplete designs for shield technology and weapon systems. They are not as good as what the consortium has, but they are better than what humans currently possess. We can share them with you. Why help us this much? Lisa asked. What do you get out of it? Zek's eyes seemed to focus on all of them at once. Hope. For 300 years, my people have been running and hiding. We have watched 47 species die because the consortium decided they were too dangerous to exist. But humans are different. Your rating is higher than any species we have ever seen. If you somehow manage to survive, it would prove that the consortium is not all-powerful. It would prove that species can resist. Other races might find the courage to stand up and fight for their freedom too. Jake understood. You want us to start a rebellion. I want you to live, Zek corrected. If your survival inspires others to seek freedom, that is their choice. But first you must face the cleaners. And I will not lie to you, Commander Harrison. The odds of your survival are very small. The cleaners have never failed to complete their mission. Then we'll be the first species to stop them, Jake said. He looked around at his team, seeing determination on their faces despite their fear. Amy, how long until the message reaches all of Earth? Already done, Commander, Amy replied. Every government and military force will have it within the next 15 minutes. Jake nodded. Good. Then we don't have time to waste. Kevin, start going through whatever data Zek can give us. Lisa, coordinate with Ben to begin defensive preparations. We need to turn everything we have into weapons. He turned back to the screen where Zek waited. Thank you for warning us. Will you stay in contact? As much as I can without being detected, Zek promised. I will send you all the information we have about the cleaners and their tactics. Study it carefully. Learn from the mistakes of species that came before you. But most importantly, remember what makes you human. That chaos and creativity the consortium fears is your greatest weapon. The world changed overnight. When the warning reached Earth, every government stopped what they were doing and focused on one thing: survival. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed to work together without argument or delay. There were no debates about politics or borders or resources. Everyone understood that in 2 months none of those things would matter if humanity was dead. Jake returned to Earth 3 days after sending the warning. His shuttle landed at a military base that had been converted into the new headquarters for Earth Defense Command. The base was in what used to be Colorado, and it was now filled with people from every corner of the planet. Scientists, soldiers, engineers, and leaders all working together in organized chaos. General Nicole Stevens met Jake at the landing pad. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. The governments of Earth had chosen her to lead the defense because she had spent her whole career preparing for the impossible. Now the impossible had arrived. Commander Harrison, Nicole greeted him. Thank you for coming. We need every experienced person we can get. Jake followed her into the main building. Inside, the walls were covered with screens showing maps, calculations, and ship designs. Hundreds of people moved through the halls with purpose and determination. The building hummed with energy and urgency. How bad is it? Jake asked. Nicole led him to a large room that served as the war planning center. A huge holographic display in the middle showed the solar system with red markers indicating where the cleaners would arrive. We have 58 days left, maybe less. Every military on the planet is under my command now. Every scientist is working on weapons and defenses. Every factory has been converted to building what we need. She pulled up another display showing Earth's current military resources. Jake felt his heart sink as he looked at the numbers. Earth had 12 proper warships, maybe 40 smaller military vessels, and a few hundred satellites with defensive capabilities. Against 3 million cleaners, it looked like trying to stop an ocean with a paper cup. This is everything we have? Jake asked. Everything we had, Nicole corrected. But we're building more. Every day, more ships are being completed. They're not pretty and they're not perfect, but they're weapons. Dr. Laura Kim entered the room carrying several tablets. She was young for such an important position, only 30 years old, but she had already proven herself as one of the brightest minds in military strategy. She had been put in charge of something called the Adaptive Warfare Division. "Commander Harrison, I've studied the data you sent from Zek," Laura said without greeting. "I've also reviewed the battle records from the 47 species that fought the cleaners. Every single one of them made the same mistakes." "What mistakes?" Jake asked. Laura spread holographic displays around the room. Each one showed a different battle, a different species, a different way of dying. They all tried to fight conventionally. They used standard military tactics. They protected their homeworlds. They tried to minimize losses. They did everything by the book, and the cleaners learned from each battle and adapted. Nicole crossed her arms. "So what do we do differently?" "We throw out the book," Laura answered. "The consortium fears us because we're unpredictable. We need to use that. Every wargame simulation they run assumes we'll fight like a rational military force. We need to be irrational. We need to be chaotic. We need to be human." Jake started to understand. The cleaners adapt to patterns. If we don't give them patterns to learn from, they can't optimize their tactics against us. "Exactly," Laura confirmed. "I'm proposing we build hundreds of small, fast attack ships instead of a few large warships. Each one will be different. Each one will fight using different weapons and tactics. The cleaners will have to treat each ship as a unique threat, instead of learning one pattern and applying it to everything." Nicole looked at the projected costs and time requirements. "Can we build that many ships in 58 days? Not proper military ships," Laura admitted. "But we can convert civilian vessels. Cargo haulers, mining ships, private yachts, anything that flies. We strip out everything unnecessary and add weapons. They won't last long in a fight, but that's not the point. The point is to create chaos." Over the next week, Jake watched Earth transform into a war machine. Every shipyard on the planet and in orbit was working around the clock. Old ships were pulled out of retirement and converted. New ships were built using designs that would have taken years to approve under normal circumstances. Nobody cared about regulations or safety standards anymore. They cared about having enough weapons to fight when the cleaners arrived. Jake was put in charge of training the new fleet. Thousands of pilots volunteered to fly the converted ships, knowing they might not survive. He spent his days teaching them how to fly in unpredictable ways, how to ignore standard tactics, how to embrace chaos instead of fearing it. "Forget everything you learned in flight school," Jake told a group of new pilots during a training session. "The cleaners are machines. They calculate optimal movements and predict enemy behavior. Your job is to be impossible to predict. Fly erratically. Make decisions that don't make logical sense. Be random." One pilot raised her hand. Her name was Claire, and she had been flying cargo ships before volunteering for combat. "How do we win if we're being random?" "We don't win by being random," Jake explained. "We survive by being random. The cleaners will expect us to value our lives and try to avoid damage. Sometimes we're going to have to do the opposite. We're going to have to sacrifice ships to create opportunities. We're going to have to look defeated to set up ambushes. We're going to have to be willing to lose battles to win the war." Meanwhile, Kevin Chen worked with scientists from around the world to understand the technology Zek had shared. The Survival Coalition had given them designs for energy shields, particle weapons, and communication jammers. None of it was as advanced as what the consortium used, but it was better than what Earth had before. "The problem is we don't fully understand how this technology works," Kevin explained during a meeting with Jake and Nicole. "We're basically copying designs without knowing the underlying science. It's like giving a caveman a blueprint for a computer. We can build it, but we can't improve it or fix it if something breaks. Can we build enough of them in time?" Nicole asked. "Barely," Kevin answered. "We've set up production facilities on 3 continents and 2 orbital platforms. Every shield generator we make gets installed on a ship. Every weapon gets mounted. We're not stockpiling anything because we need everything ready for the fight." Ben Walsh had been working on the fleet retrofit from a military shipyard in orbit. He coordinated the conversion of civilian ships into combat vessels. The work was dangerous and rushed, and several people had died in construction accidents. But Ben pushed forward because stopping meant accepting defeat. "We're going to have about 400 combat-capable ships ready by the deadline," Ben reported during a video conference. "That's including everything from proper warships down to mining vessels with weapons strapped to their hulls." "It's not enough. It's what we have," Nicole said firmly. "Make them count." While the military prepared weapons and ships, Peter Vance led a secret project that nobody except the top commanders knew about. Peter was a computer scientist who specialized in artificial intelligence. His team was attempting something that every other species had considered impossible. They were trying to hack the cleaners. Jake visited Peter's lab 30 days before the cleaners were scheduled to arrive. The lab was hidden underground and protected by multiple security systems. Inside, Peter and his team stared at screens filled with code that looked nothing like human programming. The progenitor code is supposed to be perfect, Peter explained to Jake. It's been running for 6,000 years without errors. Every species that studied it concluded that hacking it was impossible. But you're trying anyway, Jake said. Peter smiled. That's because we're human. We try impossible things. Look, the cleaners are intelligent, but they're still machines. They follow programming. And all programming has assumptions built into it. The progenitors designed the cleaners to fight rational opponents who follow logical rules. What if we attack their assumptions instead of their code? I don't understand, Jake admitted. Peter pulled up a simulation on the main screen. The cleaners make decisions based on probability calculations. They predict what enemies will do and optimize their responses. But what if we feed them conflicting data? What if we make every decision seem equally probable? We can't shut them down, but maybe we can make them hesitate. Maybe we can give them doubt. A virus that creates uncertainty, Jake said slowly. Exactly. It won't stop them, but it might slow them down. It might make them second-guess their decisions for just a few seconds. In a battle, a few seconds can mean everything. Amy had been working on intelligence gathering. With Zek's help, she managed to tap into consortium communications and monitor their response to Earth's preparations. What she discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. They're arguing about us, Amy told Jake during a late-night meeting. The Velthrons and other consortium species disagree on how to handle the situation. Some want to send their own military forces to help the cleaners. The cleaner swarm arrived exactly on schedule. Jake watched them appear on the long-range sensors, emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system near the orbit of Neptune. 3 million machines, each one the size of a large building, moving in perfect formation like a school of deadly fish. Jake stood on the bridge of the Defiance, Earth's newest and largest warship. Around him, the crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency, despite the fear that hung in the air like a heavy fog. Outside the windows, space was filled with human ships, hundreds of vessels of all sizes and types, from proper military warships to converted mining ships that had been flying cargo just 2 months ago. All ships report ready, Lisa said from her position at the tactical station. She had joined Jake on the Defiance to coordinate the fleet's movements. First wave is in position near Neptune. Second wave is scattered across the outer system. Third wave is holding near Mars. Jake opened a channel to all human forces. His voice would be heard by thousands of pilots, soldiers, and crew members across the entire defensive fleet. This is Commander Harrison. The cleaners have arrived. They've destroyed 47 civilizations before us. They think we'll be number 48. They think we'll fight like every other species and lose like every other species. Let's show them they're wrong. He paused and looked around at his bridge crew. Young faces and old faces, all determined, all scared already. We're not fighting to win today. We're fighting to survive. We're fighting to prove that humanity refuses to go quietly. Every second we last is a victory. Every cleaner we destroy is a message to the galaxy that we will not be erased. Remember your training. Be unpredictable. Be chaotic. Be human. Nicole's voice came through on a priority channel from Earth Command. All forces, you are authorized to engage. Good luck to everyone. The cleaners accelerated toward the inner system, moving faster than any ship humanity had ever built. They would reach the first defensive line in minutes. Jake watched them come, a massive wall of silver machines that reflected the distant sunlight like stars. First wave, engage at will, Jake ordered. The battle began with chaos by design. The first wave of human ships did not form a battle line or coordinate their attacks. Instead, each ship attacked independently, using different weapons and tactics. Some fired energy weapons, others launched missiles. A few cargo ships loaded with explosives simply accelerated at full speed toward the cleaners, intending to ram them. The cleaners responded with devastating precision. Their weapons tore through human ships like they were made of paper. Energy beams and projectiles destroyed vessels in seconds. Within the first minute of combat, humanity lost 30 ships, but those ships had done their job. They scattered the cleaner formation and forced the machines to respond to multiple threats simultaneously. More importantly, they made the cleaners uncertain. Each human ship fought differently, used different weapons, moved in different patterns. The cleaners tried to calculate optimal responses, but there were no patterns to optimize against. They're adapting slower than expected, Kevin reported from his position monitoring the cleaner behavior. Our chaotic tactics are working. They can't learn from one fight and apply it to the next because every fight is different. Second wave, execute random attack pattern Gamma, Jake ordered. The second wave hit the cleaners from 6 different directions at once, but these ships did not try to fight fairly. Some flew in reverse using their engines as weapons. Others spun wildly while firing in all directions. A wing of converted pleasure yachts flew in tight circles around a group of cleaners, making themselves difficult targets while their weapons chewed away at the machine's armor. Greg Martinez led his fast attack wing into the heart of the cleaner swarm. His voice came through the command channel, calm despite the chaos around him. All wings, remember the plan. No heroics, no formation flying. Make them chase you. Then lead them into crossfire from other ships. Jake watched Greg's ship dart between 2 cleaners, firing at one while another human vessel attacked the second from behind. The tactic worked. The cleaners tried to target Greg, but he moved too erratically. By the time they adjusted their aim, he was already somewhere else. But the cost was terrible. Human ships were being destroyed faster than Jake could count. The battle had been going for only 10 minutes and already more than 100 vessels were gone. Each one took its crew with it. Hundreds of people dying every minute. They're pushing through our outer defenses, Lisa said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. The cleaners are accepting heavy losses to maintain their advance. They're heading straight for Earth. Activate Peter's virus, Jake ordered. Far below on Earth, Peter Vance pressed a button. The virus his team had created launched from transmitters around the solar system. It was not a conventional computer virus. It could not shut down the cleaners or take control of them. Instead, it injected noise into their decision-making process. Random data that made every calculation slightly uncertain. Probabilities that no longer added up correctly. Predictions that contradicted themselves. The effect was subtle but immediate. The cleaners slowed down. Just for 3 seconds, but it was enough. They hesitated as their programming tried to reconcile conflicting information. Their perfect coordination broke down slightly as each machine recalculated its optimal behavior independently. 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Earth's defensive platforms opened fire. Thousands of weapons placed on satellites and asteroids throughout the inner system, all fired at once, not at the cleaners in front, but at predicted positions based on their previous movements. The virus had made them pause. The weapons had been aimed at where they would have been without the pause. The result was devastating. Hundreds of cleaners were destroyed in that moment, caught in a coordinated attack that should have been impossible against opponents who adapted to predictions. The machines tried to adjust, but the virus kept feeding them bad data. Their usually perfect calculations were now just good enough. It worked, Kevin said, his voice filled with disbelief. The virus actually worked. They're making mistakes. But the cleaners were learning. They began to filter out the false data and compensate for the uncertainty. Their formation tightened and they accelerated again. The pause was over, but humanity had made them bleed. All wings converge on coordinates Delta 7, Greg called out. We're going to try something crazy. Jake watched as dozens of human ships from different groups suddenly flew toward the same point in space. The cleaners saw them coming and moved to intercept, expecting a coordinated attack. But when the human ships reached the coordinates, they did not attack. Instead, they scattered in completely random directions. Some ships flew away from the battle. Others dove deeper into the cleaner swarm. A few stopped completely and waited. The cleaners tried to follow them, but their formation broke apart as they chased ships going in opposite directions. Once the machines were scattered, hidden human vessels attacked from positions they had been waiting in for hours. The cleaners found themselves ambushed from behind while their attention was focused on the decoys. Laura's chaos tactics are actually working, Lisa said. She pulled up the battle statistics. We're still losing ships, but we're destroying cleaners faster than they predicted. They expected to take minimal losses. Instead, we've destroyed almost 5% of their swarm. 5% sounded small until Jake did the math. That was 150,000 cleaners destroyed, more than any other species had managed before being wiped out. But it had cost humanity dearly. Half the defensive fleet was gone, thousands of people dead, and the cleaners were still pushing forward. Third wave, prepare to engage, Jake ordered. All remaining forces fall back to Earth orbit. The battle raged for 18 hours without pause. Human ships fought and died. Cleaners adapted and fell. The void of space became filled with debris, and the expanding clouds of destroyed vessels. Communications channels carried the sounds of people fighting, people dying, and people refusing to give up. Jake lost count of how many times he ordered attacks that seemed insane. Cargo ships loaded with nuclear weapons rammed cleaners at full speed. Missile platforms fired in patterns that looked random, but created kill zones. Fighter wings led cleaners into the gravitational pull of moons and planets, using natural forces as weapons. Claire, the former cargo pilot, died leading a wing of converted freighters in an attack that destroyed an entire cleaner battle group. Ben Walsh went down fighting when his orbital shipyard came under direct attack. Hundreds of others whose names Jake would never know sacrificed themselves to buy a few more minutes, a few more destroyed enemies, a few more chances for humanity to survive. As the sun began to rise over a battered Earth, Jake looked at the tactical display with exhausted eyes. The cleaners had been pushed back to the orbit of Mars. Not defeated, not destroyed, but pushed back. For the first time in 6,000 years, a Class 9 species had made the machines retreat. They're regrouping near Jupiter, Lisa reported. Her voice was hoarse from hours of giving orders. Their losses are at 40%. That's 2 million cleaners destroyed, but we've lost 80% of our fleet. The celebration lasted exactly 3 hours. Then reality set in, and everyone remembered that while humanity had survived the cleaners, they had not won the war. They had only won the first battle. Jake stood in the rebuilt command center 7 days after the cleaners retreated. The center had been damaged during the fighting when several machines broke through Earth's defenses and attacked orbital platforms. Repair crews had worked around the clock to get the basic systems running again, but the scars of battle were everywhere. Screens still showed cracks, and some sections of the station had been sealed off due to hull breaches. Zek appeared on the communication screen, his multiple eyes showing something that might have been excitement or fear. It was hard to tell with his species. Commander Harrison, I hope you understand what you have done. The entire galaxy is talking about nothing except Earth's survival. In 6,000 years, no Class 9 species has ever driven away the cleaners. What's the consortium's response? Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer would not be good. Chaos, Zek replied. The Veltrons have recalled all their diplomats from border regions. The Council of Species is holding emergency sessions. Some members are calling for immediate military action against Earth. Others are questioning whether the classification system itself is flawed. A few brave species are even suggesting that maybe Class 9 species should not be eliminated at all. Nicole entered the command center carrying multiple data tablets. She looked exhausted. Everyone looked exhausted. The battle had taken everything from them, and now they had to prepare for what came next. Zek, what are the chances the consortium sends their military forces instead of just machines next time? Almost certain, Zek answered. The cleaners were supposed to be unstoppable. Your survival has shaken their entire system. They cannot allow other species to think rebellion is possible. They will come with everything they have to make an example of you. How long do we have? Jake asked. 6 of your months, perhaps less. The consortium moves slowly because they have always had time on their side. But now they feel threatened. They will gather their forces and come to finish what the cleaners started. Amy worked at a nearby console, monitoring communications from across the galaxy. What she was seeing made her both hopeful and terrified. Commander, we're receiving messages from 43 different species. Most of them are hidden transmissions sent secretly. They're all saying similar things. They watched our battle. They saw us survive. And now they're questioning their own place in the consortium. Kevin looked up from his analysis of the cleaner technology they had recovered from destroyed machines. Some of these species are rated Class 7 or 8. They've been living in fear of their own death sentences. Our victory showed them that resistance is possible. Rebellion, Nicole said quietly. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every species that the consortium has threatened. Jake felt the weight of that responsibility settle on his shoulders. It was one thing to fight for humanity's survival. It was another thing entirely to become the symbol of resistance for an entire galaxy. But looking at the messages flooding in from species across the stars, he knew there was no going back. Lisa entered the command center with news from the fleet reconstruction efforts. We've got repair yards working on every damaged ship that can be saved. We're also starting construction on new vessels based on what we learned during the battle. The chaos tactics worked, so we're going to build even more diverse ship types. What about our losses? Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Lisa's face grew somber. Final count is 7,342 confirmed dead. Another 2,000 missing and presumed dead. That's just military personnel. Add in civilian casualties from the cleaners that reached Earth orbit, and the number goes over 10,000. The command center went quiet for a moment. 10,000 people had died to prove that humanity could not be eliminated without a fight. 10,000 names that would be remembered as the first casualties in a war that was just beginning. We honor them by making sure their sacrifice meant something, Jake said finally. We make sure humanity survives. We make sure this never happens to another species. Over the following weeks, Earth transformed from a defensive position to an offensive one. The victory against the cleaners had bought time, but everyone knew that time was limited. If the consortium was going to bring its full military might against Earth, then humanity needed allies and better technology. Zek's Survival Coalition offered more help. They shared star charts showing hidden routes through space that the consortium did not monitor. They provided coordinates for abandoned progenitor facilities where ancient technology might still function. Most importantly, they began bringing other species into the fold. Jake met with representatives from the coalition in secret locations scattered throughout the solar system. Each meeting brought new allies, new resources, and new complications. Some species wanted to fight openly, others only dared to help in secret. A few wanted guarantees that humanity would protect them if the consortium discovered their treason. We can't promise to protect everyone, Jake told Nicole during a strategy meeting. We barely survived against the cleaners. The consortium has millions of ships and soldiers from 200 species. We're outnumbered by factors we can't even calculate. So we don't fight them head on, Nicole replied. She pulled up a map of consortium space. We fight smart. We hit supply lines. We inspire more species to join us. We turn their size into a weakness because coordinating 200 different species with different technologies and cultures is difficult. The bigger they are, the slower they move. Laura had been studying the battle data and developing new tactics based on what worked against the cleaners. Her team discovered something interesting in the debris analysis. The cleaners were more effective at the start of the battle than at the end. Not because they were damaged, but because we kept changing our tactics. Every time they started to adapt, we did something completely different. That's how we beat them. So we need to keep inventing new ways to fight, Jake said. We can never let them predict us. Peter's team was making progress on something even more ambitious than the virus they had used against the cleaners. They were attempting to build a weapon that could disrupt consortium communications across multiple star systems simultaneously. If they succeeded, it would blind the enemy fleet and make coordination impossible. It's dangerous, Peter warned during a presentation to the command staff. If we use this weapon, the consortium will know we have technology that threatens their entire infrastructure. They might decide to destroy Earth completely rather than risk letting us share this technology with other species. They're already planning to destroy us, Nicole pointed out. We might as well give them a good reason. Greg had been training new pilots using the lessons learned from the battle. Thousands of volunteers came forward wanting to fight for humanity's survival. Greg worked them hard, teaching them that in space combat against superior forces, creativity mattered more than skill. Forget the manual, he told every new group. Forget what you think war should look like. We're not trying to be better pilots than them. We're trying to be more unpredictable. As the weeks turned into months, Earth's defensive fleet grew larger and stranger. Ships of all sizes and designs filled the orbital space. Some were sleek military vessels built using consortium technology that Zek's people provided. Others were converted civilian ships covered in mismatched weapons and armor. A few were experimental designs based entirely on human creativity and desperation. Ben's replacement, an engineer named Carl Wright, pushed the boundaries of ship design further than anyone thought possible. He created vessels that looked like they should not fly at all, but worked because they were designed around one simple principle: be impossible to predict. If we can't figure out what our own ships will do next, Carl explained, then the enemy definitely can't. 4 months after the battle with the cleaners, Amy discovered something disturbing in the consortium communications she monitored. They're not just bringing military forces. They're also bringing political pressure. They're offering deals to every nation on Earth. Join the consortium voluntarily, submit to genetic modification, and only the resistance leaders will be eliminated. Refuse and the entire planet will be sterilized. Trying to divide us, Nicole said. Classic tactic. Make it seem like cooperation is the smart choice and resistance is selfish. Will it work? Jake asked. Not a chance, Nicole replied with certainty. Earth unified against the cleaners. No nation is going to break that unity now. Not when we proved we can survive. The consortium doesn't understand humans at all. We're stubborn. The harder they push, the harder we push back. But there were others in the galaxy who did break under pressure. Amy reported that several species who had initially offered support quietly withdrew their pledges. They had watched Earth survive, felt hope for a moment, then remembered the reality of the consortium's power. Better to live as controlled servants than die as free rebels. Zek understood their fear. Do not judge them too harshly, he told Jake during one of their regular communications.